Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm super excited to film this video for you today. This is my second month of this new series that I'm doing called Throw and Shade. This series was created by Jessica from Beauty and Baseball, and if you didn't see my last video, I will go ahead and link it down below. I will also link Jessica's video down below. Today is the 2nd of August, so I'm a day late in getting this video filmed, but if you're not familiar, this is a series that is designed to help you rotate through and shop through your eyeshadow collection stash. So there is a growing list of categories that I'm going to go ahead and link down below in a Google document. I think we're up to like 216 at my last check, or at least when I picked my products, and all those different categories have a corresponding theme for eyeshadow. So we're doing this roulette style. We're picking 5 to 10 eyeshadows each month, roulette style, to use to correspond with these categories. This time I did go ahead and film the picking process. I did it at home, so I'm going to go ahead and speed through that when we get into this and show you that I did pick all of these categories roulette style with random.org, and I stuck to them. I did not film me choosing the products that I chose for these, but I did show myself choosing the categories. So I'm going to go ahead and show that real quick, and then we'll go ahead and get into the products that I chose for these categories. So the first category that I picked was number 55, Say My Name. I got this in my July Throw and Shade Roulette as well, and I decided not to throw it out this time and just decided to use it as another opportunity to pull another shadow. But I will say that this was the hardest one for me to pick the last time, and it was a little bit easier this time because something just immediately popped into my mind, and it comes from this palette by Pure Minerals. This is the Jupiter Ascending palette. This goes along with the Jupiter Ascending movie, which had Channing Tatum in it, and that was the reason why I purchased this palette, even though I still haven't seen this movie. So the shade that I chose from this palette is right here, and this shade is called Cain. So I thought of like Cain and Abel, and also I think in this movie that is Channing Tatum's character's name is Cain. So I decided that I would go ahead and choose this shade right here because I haven't used this palette since I got it, and it is something that I might consider decluttering because these shadows right here are not super inspiring to me. And even this shade right here in Cain seems like it might be really chunky, glittery. It's a brown with a gold glitter in it, so I don't have high hopes for this palette going into it, and it's the reason why I haven't touched it in all this time. So I think that is Jessica's intention with this project as well, is to shop your stash and see what you do and don't like in your stash. And if that's not her intention, that is what this project or this series is going to help me do personally. So that is my first shade right there, Cane, from the Pure Minerals palette in Jupiter Ascending. The second category that I chose was 197 Raspberry Beret. Now I have this perfect like raspberry eyeshadow vision in my head, and I went through so many palettes and I just couldn't find what the vision in my head was. I just had this bright cherry pink kind of color in my head, and everything that I thought might work just was either too dark, or it was too purpley, or it was just too much of something. And then I realized that the closest that I think I've ever gotten to that kind of a shade is in this MAC Fruit Alala palette, and this is this shade right here, and this is called Fury. So I was really happy that I was going to get an opportunity to not only use this shade, but use this whole palette while I have this color in this series, because I felt like I wanted to get some more use out of this palette, and I never did. Even though I kept putting it in my makeup baskets, I never really got any more use out of it because I was using so many other things. But I think because I have a reason to go into this palette for that Fury shade, I will definitely use the other shades in this palette. So that is another thing that I mentioned in my previous video that this project is going to do for me. It's not only going to allow me to use that particular eyeshadow, but to use a lot of the eyeshadows that are in these palettes that I choose as well. So it will help me to rotate through a lot more than just the shades that I pick for this series. So number 3 was 92 Bare Naked Ladies, and I chose a shade that I already have in a project pan because I want to use this platform to hit my goals on some of these shadows. So this comes from the Too Faced Semi-Sweet Chocolate Bar palette, and that is the shade right here in Nougat. This is a really nice nude shade that I've been using as a crease and transition shade. So I'm looking forward to being able to hit my goal of hitting pan on that shade for this project, because I am going to be using these shadows for a month. So until September, when I pick my new ones, I'll be focusing on using all of these shadows. Also, quick interlude here, I'm going to be posting some pictures at the end of this video of looks that I did with the shades that I used in my July throw-in shade. So look out for that at the end of this video. Number 4, I picked 122 Galaxy Quest, and this is space themed. So the first thing I thought of was my Chanel shadow in New Moon. I have not used this shadow in quite some time. It's kind of getting dried out. It completely falls out of this glass container here. This has now become a permanent product with Chanel. So if I find that this is too dried out, I don't know how to revive a product like this, because it's not like a color tattoo where you can revive it that way. So I would repurchase this in the future because I love this product so much, but we'll see with this project. So I picked this because New Moon, the moon's in space, right? So that is Chanel's New Moon for 122 Galaxy Quest. Number 5 is Creamsicle, which is any cream shade. So again, I'm going to try and hit one of my goals on a shadow from this Stila palette right here. So this shade in Buff is a nice cream shade, and I use this to highlight my brow bone, and I decided that I would go ahead and put this for the cream shade. So I can try and hit pan on that. Number 6 is 150 Heard It Through the Grapevine, and this is a purple shade. So once again, I got some good use out of this in the last throw-in shade series, but I wanted to go ahead and use some more shadows from it. So I went ahead and chose a shade from my MAC Singles palette, and that is the shade right here, and this is Fig 1. So I am wearing this today. I actually have redone the look that I just posted a tutorial on, and I went ahead and used Fig 1 instead of that other purple shade that I used in that tutorial. So I am looking forward to using a lot of the shades that are in this palette. I stayed more on this side of things when I had this in my last throw-in shade. I did use this cranberry shade right here, but I want to use my shade in Expensive Pink. I really enjoy this shade. This was one of my first MAC shades ever, and I love it. So I want to try and use that. I think that would look really good with Fig 1 because Expensive Pink is really similar to the Makeup Geek Mai Tai shadow, which I used in that tutorial. So that is my number 6 shadow. Number 7 is 213, an Easter theme. The category is called Easter, and it's an Easter themed shadow. I racked my brain for probably 2 or 3 minutes on this because, like, what do you choose for an Easter theme? Like, I don't have any Easter palettes. I couldn't think, but then the perfect thing came to me, and it comes from this Too Faced Natural Loves palette. I'm sure this is probably in another palette somewhere because I think that was the purpose of this Natural Loves palette, is it's a lot of shades pulled from their mini palettes. So I'm sure it's somewhere else, but it is the shade right here, this pink shade right here, and this is called Bunny Nose. So it just slapped me in the face. Once it came to me, it just smacked me right upside the face and said, duh, Bunny Nose. I mean, hello, Easter Bunny, Bunny, duh. I don't think I need to make that connection for you, but that is what I chose for number 7, 213, excuse me, Easter. So the number 8 shade that I picked was number 106 in the categories, and it was called Cheap Thrills. So this was a dollar store or drugstore shadow, and I went to my drugstore eyeshadow collection, which is a lot bigger than it should be. I need to go through and declutter that whole mess, but I went right to this shadow because it came right into my brain, and this is the L'Oreal Infallible Shadow 341 Strawberry Blonde. This was one of their limited edition shades, and I somehow ended up with more than one of these. But this is what the shade looks like right here. It's a nice iridescent pinky kind of purple shade, and I'm really looking forward to using this not only as an eyeshadow but as a highlighter as well. So I am going to include that use when I use it that way as my number of times that I've used it for this series, because I think this is also about finding new ways to use your eyeshadows and your products that you have in your collection. So I look forward to using this both as an eyeshadow and as a face highlight. The number 9 shadow I pulled was from the number 12 in the categories, and it was called Shimmy Shimmy, which is a shimmer shade. So I have a couple of different options for this. I kind of decided I'm going to use more than one. And the first one that I chose comes from this Stila palette, and this is also one that I want to hit pan on and finish this year, and this is the shade right here in Sugar. It's not terribly shimmery, but it does have a shimmeriness to it, and I use usually Buff and Sugar mixed together on my brow bone, or I use one or the other. So I decided that I would pick that shade for this category and get some use out of that and hopefully hit my goal. But also there's a really nice shade here in the Too Faced Natural Loves palette, which I intend to use the same way I want to use my MAC palette and the other MAC singles palettes in this, because not just use the shades that I'm picking, but to use the whole palette. So I'm going to choose a second shade to focus on, and this is right here, and this is in the shade Fairy Tale. It's extremely glittery. In fact, it's more of a glitter top coat shadow than it is an actual like pigmented shadow. So so that's what came to mind for that category as well. And the last category, number 10, I chose category 58, and it was called Music Man. So it was a music themed shadow or palette. So what came to mind is my Too Faced Rock and Roll palette. I actually have the country palette as well. It doesn't specifically say like country music, so I didn't choose that one. I kind of went like that was more like actually like music related, so I went ahead and chose this Rock and Roll palette. So this is what this palette looks like. I had a hard time deciding what I really wanted to use as far as my shadow, so the same way I used the Too Faced Bonbons palette for one of my categories, I'm going to use this whole palette as my category for Music Man. There are names in here like rockabilly, new wave, new romantic, glam rock, pop, different types of music genres. So I think this totally fits this category, and I'm just going to go ahead and use the whole palette for that. So I love this series so much. I have created so many different looks, but I have still used so many other shadows from my collection, so I don't feel that this limits me at all. I incorporate these shades into other palettes that I'm using, and I mix things, and it's just made me so much more creative, not just in picking the products to go with the categories, but just like making eye looks. I have loved this so much. So one thing that I kind of alluded to in this video that I didn't really say at the beginning of this video is I kept tallies of how often I wore each of these shades. And I actually kept a running list of the looks that I did, because I'm usually so freaking unorganized that I don't know. I look at pictures and I don't know what I used in those pictures. So I've been trying to really keep good tabs on what I was using for this series and what I was wearing in each eye look that I did. Also, so that when I show you the videos of the pictures at the end of this video, I can let you know what I was wearing in those, or at least I may not post them with it. I might, if I can put it down at the bottom, but I was going to say I may not put it there, but at least if you ask me a question about a particular look, I can tell you what I was wearing in that look. So I intend to do the same thing for this palette, or this series, this month's series as well. And I think that works really well for me. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys are inspired to do something similar. Even if you just want to do this on Instagram, if you want to jump in and film videos for this and show us your looks, please let us know if you've decided to do that. Myself and Jessica, I know that Amanda from Makeup Junkie 80 is doing this as well. Duh. I don't remember who else is doing this. I know that there was a list of girls that started doing this, and I kind of just jumped in on this. So all the credit goes to Jessica from Beauty and Baseball for this lovely, lovely series. So creative, and like I said before, I love it so much. So stay tuned to see some of the looks that I did, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.